Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
We are Reviews Without Remorse. We are Ronin, a samurai with no master. I'm David. He is Joe. This is episode 128, and in this show we will discuss San Diego Comic-Con has come, and with it is a megaton of trailers and news. So much so that we will take a couple of weeks to cover it all. In this episode, we will cover Marvel dropped info on the first 10 projects for Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Strap in, folks, it might get bumpy. Prepare for the danger zone, as the trailer for Top Gun Maverick has also dropped. And then, a cinematic course correction of sorts, Joe and I take a look at the last of the original X-Men series, The Wolverine. How you doing, my man?
I am spectacular. I am absolutely wonderful, and oh my god, I hope I drank enough coffee to cover all of this news.
Indeed. We have a lot of news that we're going to be breaking up over the next couple of weeks, folks. But you'll get it all, don't worry.
Stand a little straighter, walk a little prouder, be an innovator, laugh a little louder, go forever greater, we can show you how to, and when will you be then? You belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
So at Comic-Con, I would say the biggest thing that happened was Marvel announced its next 10 projects that start Phase 4. And went as far as even announcing like an additional piece of film that doesn't have a release date yet, but they announced the star for it. So I'm going to start with that, actually. They announced that they're going to do a Blade movie, and it is going to star Mahershala Ali as Blade, which kind of ruins continuity with Luke Cage, but okay, whatever, I'm okay with that. But that aside, I gotta say, doing Blade, Mahershala Ali, I'm okay with that. I'm behind that. I can absolutely get behind that. I'd like to see a nice modern version of Blade.
Yeah. I from what I had heard, that casting, they probably, is this kind of a quiet acknowledgement that the stuff on TV is not canon? So I'm not sure. I kind of felt like that's I've never seen that actor do something. Again, I'm picturing Wesley Snipes, just, badass vampire killer.
Right.
This guy, I don't know what I think about that. I think he's a great actor. I think he was excellent in Green Book, and I thought he was great in Luke Cage. So, do I see him as a badass vampire stomper? Not sure, but I'm open to it.
I am as well. Now, the rest of the slate is interesting. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movies and 3 TV shows that have been officially announced. Let us start with the TV shows. Coming spring of 2021, WandaVision to the Disney Plus channel. This is the Scarlet Witch TV series. They have announced it. They have announced that Paul Bettany will be back as Vision, which, I imagine could be a little hard, but we'll see. The other TV shows, they have Tom Hiddleston back for Loki, which is also coming out spring of 2021. They got Jeremy Renner to agree to play Hawkeye in a Hawkeye TV series coming out fall 2021, where they will introduce the character of Kate Bishop. Yay. Oh, I apologize. I made a mistake. There's actually a fourth show, and I'm a little disappointed in myself that I missed it. So it's actually 6 movies, 4 shows. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That comes out fall of 2020. That's next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to have Sebastian Stan. It's going to have Anthony Mackie. And it's going to have Daniel Bruhl in it as well. Now, for those who don't remember, Daniel Bruhl was last seen arrested of sorts by the hands of the Black Panther. Mr. Helmut Zemo from Captain America Civil War is going to be part of the TV series. So I'm kind of excited about that.
I am as well. I got my fingers crossed for all of it. And by the way, I'm saying to myself, and that's another streaming service I'm going to have to pay for now. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. No, I listen, I think these are pretty interesting. I'm sort of, again, I'm sort of cautiously optimistic about them. I don't know what to expect. Are these going to be on the level of, say, the Marvel shows on Netflix that we saw? Are they going to be in the league of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Or maybe we're going to get some serious cinematic looking things like we've seen with other shows like Westworld, Stranger Things, etc. So again, kind of cautiously optimistic about these shows. And by the way, you forgot one of them, which is frankly the one I'm kind of the most curious about.
I had just realized it because the little icon of yours that I use for Skype, we use Skype to video chat so that we can check each other's expressions. And you were covering summer of 2021's What If TV series.
I'm sorry, my handsome face was in the way. But yeah, that's kind of the one that I perked up and I went, ooh, now that's interesting. That's
Jeffrey Wright is the voice of the Watcher.
What's that?
Jeffrey Wright is going to be the voice of the Watcher.
Oh, I like that. And they said all of the other actors will voice their parts.
Yes.
So that is a way to sort of keep things going and, again, do some really... Because, again, I mean, when we were younger, that was one of the coolest comics ever.
I loved the What If comics. Yeah, me too.
They were great. I mean, you saw some crazy stuff happen in those books. So, yeah, that kind of piqued my interest a lot.
Indeed. So I've screwed up like 3 times now. Originally I said it was 7-3. Then it was 6 to 4. It's actually 5-5. And I'm looking at it very carefully now, and 100%ly it is 5 movies, 5 TV shows.
So, talk to me about the lineup of movies, my friend.
Well, the first one is coming out May 1st of 2020. It is the long-begged-for Black Widow movie. Not much is known about it except the cast and the director. It's being directed by Kate Shortland. It's being written by Ned Benson. And it was announced that Rachel Weisz has joined the cast, and Ray Winstone, as well as David Harbour and Scarlett Johansson. So that's it. That's all we know about it. I'm sure it's a prequel of sorts. And we'll see what happens. But I am looking forward to her finally getting a freaking movie, for God's sakes.
Yeah, me too.
Next up, we have The Eternals, November 6th, 2020. I have no idea what the hell The Eternals are, to be perfectly honest with you. The caption reads that they are a race of immortal beings who lived on Earth and shaped its history and civilizations, which, could be interesting sounding, but it's got a hell of a cast. It's got Angelina Jolie, Richard Madden, Camille Najani, Salma Hayek is playing the queen of the Eternals. That's about all I know about that. And it is being directed by Chloe Zhao, who I have no idea who that is. Next up, we've got coming out in February 12th, 2021, Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. It seems we're finally going to get the story of the Mandarin. This is being directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, written by David Callum and Steve Englehart, and is pretty much a no-name cast except for some, pops lady called Aquafina.
No idea.
Her name is Aquafina. Aquafina. You named yourself Aquafina. Oh, and she's been in a bunch of things. She's been in Neighbors 2, Crazy Rich Asians, Ocean's 8. So she ain't some new person. I just never realized there was somebody who named themselves after bottled water. That's impressive.
Okay.
It also stars Simi Liu as Shang-Chi and Tony Chiu Wei-lung as the Mandarin. We're finally going to get a proper Mandarin. It's a shame that frickin' Tony Stark is dead, though.
You know, it's funny. When we were talking about this, and you reminded me of the short film. Was it called The King is Dead or something?
Yeah, or Long Live the King or something like that.
Long Live the
Yes.
King. And,
Yeah.
you know, I interpreted that short differently. I thought the idea was that Ben Kingsley was, in fact, the Mandarin. And he was kind of just playing stupid. You know, like, oh, no, I'm just an actor, when he was really the Mandarin all along.
No, it was supposed to be that he was being kidnapped by the actual Mandarin's group for impersonating him.
Okay. All right, very good. So that's interesting, and I'm looking forward to that.
Next up, May 7th, 2021. Now, this one, I got to be honest with you, out of all of them, this one I'm kind of most excited about. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I am really looking forward to a really trippy Doctor Strange sequel. I liked the first Doctor Strange. The fact that the villain is going to be Nightmare is really appealing to me. And Kevin Feige is describing it as the first Marvel horror movie that's going to be PG-13. And they've even got Scarlet Witch in the movie as well.
Okay.
Scott Derrickson's back. Scott Derrickson is back directing as well. So, yeah. I'm liking the sound of this a lot, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. And last but not least, Taika Waititi has returned to write and direct Thor, Love and Thunder. And brother, is that icon like an 80s reference or what?
Yes, I thought the same thing, and I think I remember, when Ragnarok came out, and I said it had a heavy metal vibe to it.
Yes,
this was the same thing, right? I felt like this, the typeface was right out of like the Conan comics, and heavy metal and stuff like that. I'm noticing, by the way, too, between Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, I kind of feel like the titles, they're trying to give you, almost without saying anything, a bit of a vibe of what to expect from it, as opposed to a title like Ragnarok or Infinity War, where, again, if you don't have any prior knowledge of any of them, you don't know what that is. This is kind of, I think, deliberately trying to sort of send a little vibe. This is what you can expect from this one.
Yeah. Of course, it's not without its, some controversy. I personally don't care, to be honest with you, because they have announced that Natalie Portman is back. And not only is she back, but at some point she is going to be able to, I don't know, lift Mjolnir or lift Stormbreaker, or I'm not 100% sure where they're going with that. But yeah, they're going down the route that they went in the comic book where Jane Foster became Thor for a little while. Ironically enough, there was also a What If Jane Foster Was Thor comic book way back in the day. So I find that kind of humorously funny. Here's my own personal feeling about it is I'm kind of going to be in Taika we trust at first, because this could be interesting or this could be a disaster. And right now I'm going to go with Taika did a really good job with Ragnarok, so I'll give him benefit of the doubt. That's my personal opinion on it.
Yes, fair enough. And I'll tell you what, my overall feeling when I saw the whole lineup, okay, like nothing in that really. I was really hoping for at least one or two like home run, left hook, to really kind of get me wildly excited for Phase 4, and I kind of felt like what I got was okay. Again, I don't know Chai-Chi. I don't know the Eternals. They got potential. I mean, when I heard the Eternals, I kind of thought, well, no one knew who the hell Guardians of the Galaxy was, and look how great that turned out. That could be another sleeper hit. And so, yeah, Love and Thunder. Well, actually, let me ask you: did they say in the thing that she is full blown going to be the thing? The name I keep hearing is Lady Thor. Is that
it's? I don't know how they're going to do it in the comic books. It's a literal translation of whoever shall wield this hammer, if they be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Okay.
Okay. So
did they call her Lady Thor, or is that like
no?
A
They
goof
never
that
called her
people
Lady Thor. They just called her Thor.
Okay.
And while during the time when Thor was unworthy, he just referred to himself as Odin's son.
Okay. I'll tell you what. I'm kind of mixed on it. I'm sort of coming at that from two angles.
Mm-hmm.
One, I'm a tad nervous that the implication could be that we're going to stick with this Fat Thor storyline where he's just kind of not into being Thor. So she has to sort of come in and take over the hammer and become Thor. I don't know. I can't see them spending a whole film with her being Thor and him just being fat and doing nothing. So I don't really see that being, the thrust of the story. But then again, I don't know what else makes much sense. The other reason why I'm sort of mixed on it is really because I'm sort of mixed on Natalie Portman, because I sort of feel like she was the one who kind of gave Marvel the finger and said, I guess, there was some little controversy when, who was the director of Wonder Woman?
Patty Jenkins.
Patty Jenkins, who was, I guess, at one point up for doing Ragnarok. And
not Ragnarok. Dark World.
Was okay. Dark World. For one reason or another, it didn't work out, so she got her nose out of joint and decided she wasn't going to do any more movies. Now suddenly she's back, and they're giving her a very prominent role. So I'm kind of like, where did she get up coming back now? After they couldn't even get her back for even some of the other movies, like the Avengers. She gets like a passing mention, and then when they did Endgame, they could have brought her back, but they think they had to use some old footage or something or other. And now suddenly she's here and she's getting a prominent role. So I'm sort of like saying to myself, like, no, hey, you left us flat. You didn't want to play anymore. You took your ball and you went home. You don't get to come back. So that's, I got with that in mind. Like I said, kind of on the whole idea. Like you said though, in Tygo We Trust, Ragnarok was my favorite, easily, of the Thors, so I'm very curious to see what he does with this.
So am I. For what it's worth, at the time that the fallout happened, that was when Ike Perlmutter was still in charge of Marvel Studios before the split off between where Kevin Feige took over completely. So maybe Feige was just able to mend those fences. Maybe she realized, okay, it wasn't this guy, it was the other guy. So who the hell knows? Well, it's a story we'll probably never know about, but we'll spend the rest of our lives, wondering.
Sure. And by the way, I'm sure you're waiting for me to kind of go berserk because just because of the PC angle of the whole thing. And I am kind of, I'm getting to where, look, I with everything going on in every single solitary franchise, and now I've got it going on big time over with James Bond. Am I gonna even comment anymore? Is it even worth talking about, or are we just sort of gonna wave the white flag? The only thing that there's a part of me that's saying like 90% of me is not worried about it, and 95% of me would not even care at all, except for the fact that I have seen what Marvel Comics did, where they just kind of just totally in one fell swoop just changed every single solitary character to somebody either a different sex or a different nationality, etc. And I kind of figured like that the Marvel Cinematic Universe knew enough not to go down that road. And for many, many years, they never even, for me, as an old school comics reader, I thought, well, I'm getting the classic characters that I knew and loved, and this is great. Now we got old Cap. Cap handed it off to the Falcon, which I thought in this universe made perfect sense. Like, Bucky was not going to be the guy to take the thing because he's bad news or whatever, or his brand has been tarnished in this universe. I mean, he's not going to be. So I thought there was a perfect logic to it. So I honestly didn't even flinch. But now that I see the pictures of Jane Foster holding the hammer, I kind of went, oh, are we going to do this here? Is this where we're going to go in the MCU? I don't know. So I will admit that there's a tiny sliver of nervousness in me, but again, I will let it play out and see how it goes, and I will not prejudge anything.
30 plus years of service. Combat medals, citations. Only man to shoot down 3 enemy planes in the last 40 years. Yet you can't get a promotion, you won't retire. Despite your best efforts, you refuse to die. You should be at least a 2-star admiral by now. Yet here you are. Captain. Why is that?
It's one of life's mysteries, sir.
Top Gun Maverick. It is being written by Christopher McQuarrie. It is being directed by Joseph Kosinski. The first trailer dropped, and it's a pretty looking trailer, isn't it?
It is. It really is. There's a part of me that's not that surprised because, again, the team of McQuarrie and Cruise, that seems to be the sweet spot there. So I guess I shouldn't be totally surprised that this piqued my interest, but yeah, it did. And I think 90% of the reason was the shots of the aerial shots of the jet stunt flying, which looks completely like this was done for real. This is practical stuff, and they didn't CGI this or junk it up or so. I'm saying to myself, did Tom Cruise now learn how to fly a fighter jet for this movie? Because that's what it's looking like. So I don't know.
It is either the best use of special effects ever anywhere, or the biggest amount of trust in a Hollywood actor I've ever seen. Because that really did look like he was launching from a freaking carrier. It
really did. And again, this is the guy who taught himself or who learned how to fly a helicopter for the last movie. So,
so who knows?
Would it really be that crazy to say that, yes, he did learn at least enough fighter jet training to get him through a couple of shots? It seems a little Looney Tunes crazy, but look who we're talking about.
Very true. I know that they used IMAX cameras for a lot of this, so this is definitely a movie I'm going to check out in IMAX.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now, as for the plot, did Ed Harris take over for Mr. Strickland as the part of the bald-headed sea captain?
That kind of looks sort of like what they're implying here, and I think that might actually work pretty well. I mean, he looks pretty sweet in this role. It almost seems like he was definitely made for this part.
Very true, but it's not like the guy who played Strickland is dead.
Yes, true. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, good point. I don't know what the. He's sitting there kind of like berating Tom Cruise for where he is. Like he didn't get very far. So if the other character was in the exact same spot, well, he didn't get very far either. Then, so maybe it's not supposed to be the same character. I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll ever actually make that clear, but it can be a little confusing. But either way, it looks like a pretty film. Story-wise, I have no idea yet, because right now they're just showing off the fact, look, there's Tom Cruise in a jet, and it looks good. So, who knows? We'll have to see.
Yes, but it's definitely got my interest.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Where were you?
Oh, Gene, I'm so sorry. I'll never hurt you or anyone ever again.
It's too late.
Can't hide.
Wolverine comes to Japan to meet an old friend whose life he saved years ago and gets embroiled in a conspiracy involving Yakuza and mutants. Written by Matt Bombeck and Scott Frank, based on characters created by Roy Thomas, Len Wein, John Romita Sr., Chris Claremont, and Frank Miller, directed by James Mangold, The Wolverine. So, do you remember the 4-issue limited series comic book that this was semi-based on?
Oh, yes. I had them all. This was a great series.
Yes, indeed it was. And if I'm being completely honest, in this cinematic universe, in the way that they have portrayed Wolverine, this was as good as you were going to get as a translation of that. I thought this was a pretty good movie, frankly.
I am with you. It's funny. I remember when I first saw it, kind of feeling like, yeah, that was pretty good. But, for some reason, very forgettable, very disposable. And, we sort of moved on very quickly. And I remember I just watched this again today in prepping for the show. And it was funny. I remember feeling like when it first starts, I went, oh yeah, it starts out really strong. Oh yeah, this is really good. And it was almost like I was sort of prepping my review in my head, where I started to say, well, the first 10 minutes were great. Well, the first 20 minutes are great. The first half an hour was great. Like for a long time, it really, really kept up. It was really, really good. And honestly, throughout the whole film, I was pretty much on board the entire time. And it wasn't until, again, it sort of gets to the end, and not just the finale, but once it hits like the 2/3 mark, it's almost like the air starts to come out of the tires a little bit. But I'll be brutally honest, I don't know why. I can't really figure out what's lacking in this movie. That it's really not. I mean, there are moments where, they're starting to even mimic the style of like John Woo and some of the great, some of the great modern martial arts films that we got. And there's a lot. It's almost like they were doing the best imitation they could possibly do, just shy of actually hiring someone who does that sort of action film. So you really did get this kind of like B+, A- action scenes that were really, really close to being spectacular. But yeah, I'm still right now struggling, and maybe we'll figure it out as we talk, but I'm struggling to figure out what exactly is lacking in this movie.
I do feel that the ending is a little weakish, but yet with everything that came before, it's honest. It's weird. It's one of those situations where like you have an ending that was kind of like, oh. But if you think about the rest of the movie, it's like, well, yeah, I guess it kind of does make sense that it builds to that. I just kind of feel like this was just a case of they got so many things right in this movie, and even the plot was intriguing enough to keep you going along, but it kind of spun out at the end. It's like watching a racer just spin out at the end as they've been leading for a good portion of the race, spin out and wound up in second instead of first. This was extremely close to being a first place movie.
Yeah.
And it wound up just being second. But it had enough of an influence. It inspired Jackman so much that when Mangold said, "Hey, let's do this again with Logan," he came back.
Yeah.
So, because this is pretty much the same. The only difference is Matt Bombeck, as one of the screenwriters, did not come back for Logan. Scott Frank is the one that came back for Logan as the writer. And Mangold is a story writer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I kind of felt like it was an honest portrayal of Wolverine. I liked the fact that you know the one thing that didn't happen in X-Men Origins, and they couldn't because it was supposed to be an origin story, is like, here he is. Jean was supposed to be like this wonderful love and so on and so forth that they've been trying to portray in all 3 X-Men movies, and that killing her was like the single biggest, hardest thing that he had to do in X-Men Last Stand, to which you and I kind of sort of, well, me mostly, not you as much, laughed at that. I was like, oh yeah, then he kills her. Yeah, that was great. This movie kind of redeems that a little bit. I kind of felt the interaction between him and Jean in this movie was nice. And I kind of felt like it gave a better idea of the ideal of Jean that he saw as opposed to what she actually was and the guilt he felt over having to do what he had to do.
Yeah, I like the way you said that about this sort of represented the ideal Jean that he kept sort of imagining. Because yes, you're right. Throughout 3 X-Men films, they kept sort of trying to imply some kind of, I mean, at best, you had some romantic tension. You had one moment in the third one where there's an actual kiss, but there really was never anything resembling a relationship. So I remember feeling like throughout that whole series, it was a struggle to sort of see what they were trying to sell you on. And this one, it was interesting, but I had mixed feelings about it because again, I was looking at this through the eyes of the first 3 films saying, okay, but they never really had that kind of a relationship. Again, like you said, this is his interpretation of what she is. This is his idea of how she feels, which may have nothing to do with the truth. So that was fair, yes. I did sort of feel like maybe they were sort of overusing her a little bit. Like maybe they went to the trouble to bring her into this film, so she kept popping up. I mean, at one point I was starting to feel like she was like the ghost of Ben Kenobi in The Empire Strikes Back. Like, but yes, but what you're saying is spot on, where I do feel that this film takes what they had to work with at that point. They took what we learned from the X-Men films. They took what we knew of Wolverine, and to this film's credit, by the way, they don't dismiss what came before. Like, they don't do a Last Jedi and sort of push away everything that came before, even though they had every right to, because Origins is so awful. But I remember even something as silly as when he gets in the plane and he kind of is uncomfortable in planes. I have no idea if that is anything from the comics, but I remember them doing that in Origins. So right. They kept that here, that he just doesn't like to fly. So again, they did not, piss on things that came before this. They just took what they had to work with and they did the best movie they possibly could. And again, maybe what happens is at some point, because they start to get into stuff like the mutations and then they bring out Viper. Like, the Viper character to me is the only one in this film that looks comic booky, which I'm this is probably going to be some doublespeak on my part, because who's the biggest costume commander around? And
you are.
I am, and I literally had to look her up because I was curious, because I remember by the time the finale came and she was wearing that funky green dress, I specifically looked up pictures of her because I want to see if that's comic accurate, and that's why she looks borderline out of place in this, and she was. I mean, that was pretty much spot on her costume. So I was pretty impressed with that, but again, I did look at it in the context of this film and feel that she was the one who now stuck out a little bit. Her mutant power, where she's spitting acid in people's faces and like barfing up poison and stuff. I was kind of getting a vibe of Toad from the first one, who I thought just sort of stuck out like a sore thumb, frankly. Yeah. So again, I guess maybe that's part of it, is that the tone of this film was, like you said, it was so, in many ways, a very good representation of that Wolverine miniseries that takes place in Japan. The imagery, some of it is great. And they went to the trouble to do that scene where he goes to the village, and he's walking through the village, taking on all the ninjas or whatever. And when they start just blasting him with arrows, like they're shooting the bows and arrows, and his back is just nothing but arrows, where he falls flat, and there's like 100 arrows sticking out of his back. Like, that was imagery that was right from that series, which was so great. And when I saw it here, I thought, it was almost like there was a part of me that's like, I dare you to try to do. I dare you, because you'll never get that imagery right. But I thought they did pretty damn good with what they've got. But then after that, they end up right in the super duper lab with her and she looks very comic booky, and the Silver Samurai thing. And I'm like, yeah, see now you went from that to this sort of overblown, cartoony sort of a scene. And I was like, all right. I mean, again, you're trying to juggle a lot and make it all work. So again, they do a great job with what they've got, but yeah, something about it just, and again, even that climax is not terrible. Like, there's a part of me that, I think a lot of people just really didn't like the climax and the big CGI Silver Samurai guy. I didn't think that was so terrible, but it does sort of stick out a little bit from the rest of the film, I guess.
Probably my biggest problem with that ending, since we're talking about the big Silver Samurai and everything like that, which, by the way, I just want to add real quick that visual effects-wise, they didn't do such a terrible job with the giant Silver Samurai. It looked great, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
I think one of the problems is, and I think one of the problems that you and I have is because of our knowledge of that comic book. The ending fight in that comic book is much more intimate and less technobabble.
Yes. Okay.
It is a straight up sword fight versus claws fight between oh goodness, I forget the character's name because he wasn't in this movie, but just it was the spirit of evil that was that he was basically fighting. And the book made it much more intimate. Here it was bombastic. And I think to us that kind of, at least to me, the bombast of that kind of turned me off a little bit.
Yeah.
Yet, that's just me as the comic book fan. As a film fan, I can't complain about it too much. I felt that it worked cinematically. I felt that they worked towards it in a way that was logical. They dropped the hints throughout the movie of where it was going. I felt it was an honest representation of where the story had to go and how it went. I still can't explain why, even with me doing the separation between comic book and film fan, there's just something about it that isn't settling with me for some reason. Maybe I felt it was too over the top. Maybe it wasn't intimate enough. I mean, they went through the trouble in the opening to have this great scene where Wolverine saves the life of Mr. Yoshida during the bombing of Nagasaki, instead of him committing hara-kiri like the rest of the people did. And I felt like, okay, that's a great way to start a relationship for the characters. And yet, there was none of that intimacy between those characters at any point for the rest of the movie. And it no longer felt personal. It felt like, he dangled his granddaughter in front of him, hoping that he would, take to her, which, I mean, pretty lady, definitely appealing. And Mariko was actually was going to be the wife of Logan at one point in the comics until a whole rigmarole happened with Mastermind and everything like that, but that's a whole other story. It just felt like his plan relied on a lot of things going his way. All right? It relied on him not getting killed by the Yakuza when he was trying to kidnap his own granddaughter back. It relied on him, on Wolverine actually taking to his granddaughter. Now, granted, he hasn't seen Wolverine since World War II. That was the first and last time he's seen him. Yukio, which, by the way, I want to throw out a quick shout-out to the character of Yukio. I loved the character Yukio.
Yeah.
She was awesome in this movie.
Yes. Totally agree.
Ryla Fukushima. Mwah. Beautiful job there, lady. But we'll get back to you. I promise. I promise we'll get back to you. The whole story was honest, and yet the whole story was ridiculous because it really was where, how was he? What was the big? The big plan was he wanted to take Wolverine's healing factor. Okay. So he puts him in all these, life and death situations where he could possibly die. Oh, and by the way, his henchman has brought his healing factor down to near human levels. There were many moments where Wolverine could have frickin' died.
Yeah.
And then what would he have done?
Yeah.
It's kind of a big sticking point.
Yeah.
Like, everything works logically as you go along, but once you start breaking down the plot, you realize that huge ending that happened, as honest it is to where it was before, has the problem of, well, wait a second, it relies on him falling in love with her. It relies on him surviving being attacked by the Yakuza X amount of billions of times throughout the movie. Great fight sequences, but still. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the long-term plan was.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, honestly, there was sort of there was a nagging thought I kept having too. I wasn't buying the idea that Wolverine's powers, if they simply said that they could be duplicated, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But to imply that I would be taking them from you, I thought now that sounds a little like I'm trying to think of a comparison, but it's almost like a little too mystical, or like I'm taking your sword from you. I'm taking something from you, the powers you have, like because you wear a magic ring, I'm going to take it off of you and put it on me. Like, I kind of feel like any sort of power like that in any sort of a comic book or science fiction story, it's like, why would the healing leave you to come to me? Doesn't really, I don't see how that would sort of work, and that sort of kept bugging me. But in fact, I thought, like, when they do the shot where Viper goes into his bedroom and does something to him while he's sleeping, and he sort of wakes up and not sure if he dreamt it or whatever. Right. And then suddenly his healing powers are not there. The implication I was getting, the impression I was getting from that was that she had already taken some of his powers. Mm-hmm. Instead, you find out later that she planted some creepy Matrix bug on his heart, which was, for some reason, taking away his healing powers. I didn't quite get why that would be. So again, I think that was sort of when the movie was starting to derail, because I was feeling like now this stuff is not making sense. Now we got this guy who again, he's on the operating table. He reaches into his own heart to pull the thing out. I guess it was kind of starting to lose me there, because that didn't make any sense to me. Well, again, they never explain what the spider thing is. Why?
Yeah, how it is suppressing his ability to heal.
Right.
And if it was suppressing his ability to heal, why at the heart? Why not the liver? The liver is the one that usually does all the healing.
Anything, yeah. I mean, there was not a lot of logic to that. So, I mean, and honestly, that's a little frustrating, because you could have, like, once he goes to the table that the guy was sitting on and starts running the test, there could have been anything you could have put there as your plot point to make that make sense. Again, I mean, and the thing literally looked like the thing from the Matrix, frankly, and that was sort of irritating. But I mean, honestly, again, the frustration is that probably up until around that point, like, when they did the whole thing, I mean, and again, first of all, the scene with the bear was great. Yeah. And I thought, and that was, I don't know if it was that series of comics, but I specifically remember that or something exactly like that from one of the comics.
Yeah, I do too. I don't remember.
So honestly, I thought that was pretty sweet. I mean, again, that's the point where I'm into this film, like, big time. I'm totally on board with it. When they go to Japan, it was great. I loved the scene. I mean, the scene when they're washing him in the tub was funny. I mean, that gave me exactly the sort of giggle that it was trying to do, and I thought that was really well done. I will say this too. again, all like there are moments in this film where I'm sort of wondering how his powers work, how the mutant powers work, and one of the things that is sticking out of my head, how the hair part works.
Yeah, how quickly should his hair grow back?
I'm saying to myself, well, why would he have like when seriously he's in Nagasaki and the big one goes off, the atomic bomb goes off. He gets roasted and he looks like, he's sitting there looking like a like a burnt marshmallow or whatever. And then he heals very quickly and his hair grows back even. And I'm saying to myself, like I started to think like I'm remembering like Interview with a Vampire where she cuts her hair off and then 2 seconds later it grows back exactly to the length it was when she died. Right. And I kind of felt like, so I always thought that was sort of what Wolverine is. Like his hair is like at a permanent length and no matter what you do to it, it would always end up exactly like that. So then why he's got long hair and a big thick beard and they cut it down to the Wolverine beard? Like, I mean, did the ladies in the tub give him the Wolverine beard or whatever? I don't know. So little things that my brain does when I'm watching movies. But honestly, everything from the big attack right after the funeral to the big escape with her. And by the way, like one of the things I noticed about this film, and again, this is sort of one of the things that I think was kind of close, but they didn't quite get it right. But I really appreciated the effort. When he escapes with Mariko after the funeral and they're on the run and there's the bullet train scene and then they find a hotel and it's this kind of this crummy like sex hotel, because they're in the shady part of town. I thought that was pretty well done. I liked how they were really giving you a pretty authentic look at a whole other world, frankly. I thought that was pretty spot on. I liked how Japan is represented. The old school stuff and the countryside over here, and then the weird aspects of the city. And then the two end up going to Nagasaki, and there's a lot of time when they are just sort of spending some time together. It's a lot of really great downtime. And I'm saying to myself, this is what a lot of films forget to do. They're trying to give us kind of a romance between these two people. And they were letting it have some time to cultivate, but yet something was still missing. There was some sort of a spark there that never really seemed to happen. And I almost feel like that is sort of part of what my struggle with the film was that, again, like you need to protect so-and-so, and he sort of does, and then he kind of gets, the implication is that he starts to get emotionally involved, but honestly, I was waiting for some real spark, something to really take hold and show me that he really does love this woman, and he really is going to stop having dreams about Jean for her. And then by the time he's sort of fighting his way into the, with all the ninjas and everything and the arrows, like it's a great scene, but I'm not quite getting the thing that he's like madly in love with her, and that's why he's fighting all these people to get to her. And by the way, I remember at the end when he just leaves, and like you said in the comic, they basically he was going to marry her. He was going to settle down. I remember, I don't know if it was the end of this series or it was in another series, but I specifically remember one of the X-Men comics ending with somebody over at the X Mansion opening up an envelope and going, "What the heck?" And it's a wedding invitation from Logan and Mariko.
That was the end of this series, yeah.
Was it this? I mean, it was great, too. I mean, they open it up, and it's got the picture of the two of them, and it says, "You're cordially invited," and then, like, in like this kind of chicken scratch writing in there, it says, "Elf, don't forget the beer."
Yeah.
I love that. That was great. So he was going to live happily ever after, but for some reason, in this film, they just sort of cut it off at the ankles once the action is all over, and he says, "No, I'm the soldier, I gotta go." And she's like, "Are you gonna come back and visit?" He's like, "No." So I was like, "All right, well, but you just gave me this whole scene of Jean Grey walking like to heaven or something or other. Like the visions of Jean stop because he's found something now here that he's going to attach himself to. He's going to stop being the Ronin, then suddenly gets on the plane. and just says, yeah, no, bye. Like not even like we'll always have Paris, just oh, goodbye.
I imagine that they were restricted by a lot of no, we have to keep certain things for the other movies and blah, 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 blah. That's kind of the way I took it. I get the feeling that they had a different idea as to how it was going to end.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, originally they shot an ending where, and you see it too in the movie. There's a point where he's talking to Mariko, and in the background you see a guy walk over with a case and hand it to Yukio.
Mm-hmm.
And in an alternate cut of the movie, when he opens it, it's the classic Wolverine suit.
Yeah. Yep. But they just love the jeans and tank top look too much.
It is really the one regret that I have with the entire Jackman run as the Wolverine, that the man never got an actual Wolverine costume, or wore it.
You know what's frustrating too, and I'm positive that we've talked about it here before, but honestly, this was the film to do it in. And even if it was only temporary, even if, for example, like, again, the whole point was that he's losing his powers. He's vulnerable. If he gets shot, he's going to be wounded. So what better time to grab some armor off the wall? I mean, again, the implication at the end was that the mask sort of had this sort of Japanese mask look to it. Mm-hmm. So he could have easily grabbed some stuff off of the walls. They could have done something where he puts this stuff together and it looks like the Wolverine costume. And he has to go fight in this armor for a while. At least for a scene or two. And then the ending could have been him opening that case, and it's sort of like a more put together version of the costume. I mean, people would have gone crazy. Again, that's just me. That's my costume commander. But boy, that's and the really frustrating part is that the costume in the case looks great.
Yeah, it
looks like the perfect Wolverine costume. So you're like, what the hell? Why can't I get this? Put it on.
Oh no, there's a lot of moments of frustration in this movie. This movie is very emotionally weird to me because I enjoyed it. I really, really did enjoy it. But the more you pull at the layers, you see the mistakes, you see the failures, the weaknesses, and it almost becomes disappointing, shall we say?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I tell you, when we get to scoring, my scoring is going to be weird because I really...
Mine too.
I feel like it's almost like on paper I have one number, yet my heart says another number. And I literally can't justify it. I can't quite figure out why on paper it all works, and yet somehow it's still lacking as I'm watching it. And again, throughout a lot of this film, I'm like, this is really going great. I'm enjoying all of this. This is really rock solid. And then at some point, it just kind of falls flat. I mean, it's funny too because I've often thought to myself, between Logan being as spectacular as it is, between Origins being as piss poor as it is, this is kind of the oddly perfect bridge between the two. Like, it almost straddles the fence perfectly. If you took the first one and the last one and put it into a blender, here's what you'd have. You'd have like the genius of Logan, but still saddled with some of the schlock from Origins.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's the brilliance of this movie. Maybe that's the thing we need to give it credit for, because it didn't shy away from what came before. It didn't try and pretend that the previous movies didn't exist. It worked with what it had. It, I wouldn't say it respected X-Men Origins Wolverine, but at least it acknowledged and said, yes, this happened. We have to deal with that. And maybe that's what we really should look at this movie as. This is the bridge movie. This is the movie that without which we wouldn't have gotten Logan. Plain and simple.
Yeah. True. Well, I mean, look, again, they had the property. They had Wolverine. They were always going to do Wolverine movies. I will just say thank you, God, that we didn't get X-Men Origins Part 2, more schlock like the first one. They gave it to somebody like Mangold who knew this character much better. He knew the direction to take this in. Again, it's not like they called up James Mangold and said, hey, you're going to do a Wolverine movie. You do whatever you want. No. they said, you're going to do a Wolverine movie, but here's what we've been doing. Here's Hugh Jackman. He's got 3 X-Men movies under his belt, plus this Origins, which was kind of lame. So you take that and you do what you can. With that in mind, I mean, this thing is pretty close to a great film with all that in mind. And I mean, basically, I kind of look at this and I say, would this movie have been better had he not had all that other stuff to sort of deal with? Is the problem that we're still sort of stuck in this X-Men comic booky cinematic world that they had set up? Or is it just is the problems of this film on its own shoulders? Is it Mangold's fault? Is it the creative people in this film? Is it their fault that they kind of dropped the ball in certain spots? Again, it's hard to say. I'm not really sure.
Is it the fault of the studios making them make changes? It's really hard to say. I do know that Mangold was picked by Jackman. It seems that they got along very well from the 2001 Kate and Leopold. Do you remember Kate and Leopold?
Really?
Yeah. That was directed by James Mangold.
Wow. That's the film we have to thank for this? All right, well, that's interesting.
I mean, it's a small world, I guess, when it comes to Hollywood. And if you have a positive relationship with somebody, you kind of want to go with that.
You know what? Maybe the two of them were sort of like old school comic geeks. Maybe they had good conversations where, Jackman said, man, I would love to do a really good Wolverine. Look at this series right here. And he showed it to Mangold, and maybe Mangold's like, yeah, I had that too. I know what you're talking about. Maybe they're on the same page. So maybe there's
Probably. But the thing about this, I think it is mostly about this movie. The reason why we're in such a confused state about it is because, we're nitpicking. We're nitpicking the stuff that deserves absolutely to be nitpicked. And we both are scratching our heads over why the ending isn't fitting the way it does. I think the reason why it's tearing us the way it is because, for each one of those, there is a moment of, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I loved each and every fight in this movie. I can't remember an X-Men movie where I said, oh, every fight that happened in this movie was spectacular. I kind of felt like every fight in this movie was really, really good. Even the little fights. Even the silly, intimate fight in the bar where he goes up, well, I want to buy you a drink. I love that whole exchange.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and by the way, I thought the Bullet Train fight still pretty much stood up. I thought a lot of it was really
shocked.
Good.
I was when I knew it was coming. A part of me was like, "Oh God, here comes that bullet train thing and everything like that."
Right.
I kind of feel like I don't remember this movie as well as I did because I'm watching it. It's like actually, okay, physics wise, it's still a little dicey, but it's still awesome.
Yeah, honestly, totally. I mean, we saw Captain Marvel earlier this year. There's a fight on top of a train. It's not nearly as exciting as this.
No,
and this is, for the time, that's pretty damn ambitious. I was pretty impressed that they made that work, frankly.
I love the subtle stuff, too, like where he fakes him out with the jump up. I laughed my head off with that.
Isn't that great?
It does have a mid-credit sequence that is supposed to set up Days of Future Past. Which, to be honest with you, after having seen Days of Future Past, I'm not sure how that scene sets that up, because that takes place in the present. He still has his bone claws, whereas when Days of Future Past comes along, it's set in the future. Somehow he's got his adamantium back.
I'll tell you what, I hated that mid-credits for the reason you said. I kind of felt like, and again, this is sort of why I kind of go back and forth on where the blame lies, because when I saw the mid-credits and Magneto shows up, Professor X shows up. Now, this is the moment in the film I think you would have been like, oh, yay, cool, familiar faces and fan service and cool, now we're back to X-Men stuff. I remember, as I watched it tonight, I went, blech. Like, honestly, I felt like this film did such a good job of sort of pulling me into this new world that it almost felt like a last minute fake out when they showed up, and honestly, I didn't understand it. I didn't get. First of all, they say it's 2 years later.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be 2 years later? I didn't understand that. And like you said, Logan, forces are doing this or whatever, but didn't they imply in future past that was way into the future?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think the whole reason they did 2 years later is to imply that between the ending of the movie and now something happened to Yukio. It's like, well, I would have liked to have known what the hell happened to Yukio. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it was that. Yeah, I do sort of wonder. I don't know any of the behind the scenes stuff. So if there were rewrites and versions of the scripts, I'd be curious to know what they were. But because honestly, the film does. I feel that there had to have been like some either reshoots, rewrites, etc. For example, we were talking about the spider thing on his heart. Mm-hmm. Again, that doesn't make any sense when the whole point of her powers was, again, she came up on him in the middle of the night. She's breathing down his throat. Her whole power is that she can make poisons and toxins, etc. Why would that translate into creating this little robot spider that hangs around on his heart? I guess when the time comes and you have to sort of put him on the table and all the lights and the buttons and the screens pop up, how do you show or how do you represent something happening that's, again, a visual metaphor for something that we can fix? This is what's wrong with me. I can fix it. I mean, you could have just done something where it's like, oh, you're infected with this toxin. Here's the antidote. But I guess that's not as visually satisfying as watching him cut himself up and like stick his hand in his own heart. I get that, but again, it doesn't make any sense, and that's why I'm saying I wonder if there were some weird reshoots and rewrites. Because again, once you get to the ending, it kind of loses its footing a bit, and we kind of get back into this. Like, I agree with what you said before. I mean, you said that there were seeds planted early on that come to fruition in the end. So it's not like these things come out of total left field. But yeah, it does seem like it doesn't really work exactly right. I mean, seriously, like the shot, by the way, when he goes to find the guy in the hotel and he's got the two strippers or whatever, and he's down in his underpants.
His red underpants.
Yeah, he says, "You're really going to talk tough to me standing there with your red underpants?" But I love that thing. I'm going to give you get 10 words. And he's like, no. And the guy starts shooting his mouth off. He goes, he punches him. Now you got one word. Make it count, whatever. And then he ends up throwing him out the window anyway. Like, yeah. That was great. I thought, I mean, there are moments in this film where it gets really badass. It really gets into like a full-blown like Hong Kong John Woo, seriously badass kind of movie. And then it kind of dials back and comes back into comic book land. And that, again, I mean, there are some movies where you can really make you have to work with your ingredients to make the right cocktail, I suppose. But in this one, they don't mix correctly. And it gets it just ends up being jumbled and kind of disjointed. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the frustration of the film.
I've been trying to find you for over a year. It's an honor to meet the Wolverine.
That's not who I am anymore.
How much of a frustration, though? Because we're there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We are there, sir. Like me to go first? Because you seem like you're still trying to figure it out.
Go for it.
It's funny how in increments they kept getting closer and closer to what Wolverine really is. And I kind of feel like before Logan, this was it. This was the closest that they ever got to getting the character right. The tortured soul. The, not sure about wanting to live or wanting to die. Haunted by his past. In this case, Gene. which was a good physical way of doing it. I suppose there's lots of different things they could have done, but having it be Gene just seems to work. Jackman is, for lack of a better word, jacked to hell in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever been as good a shape as now. He truly, you can tell that there is a lot of love for this character for him, and this means something to him. And you can feel that from every single member of the cast. I don't feel like when the weakest member of the cast, to me at least, is Viper, and even her, she wasn't all that bad. That says something about the acting in this movie. Everybody played their part. They played their part well. I don't have a problem with any of the acting. I loved Yukio. I loved, going over the Clan Yoshida. I loved the fights. I loved the special effects. It's really, really hard to have to ding it because in the end, it was hobbled. It's a hobbled movie. Hobbled either by what has come before, hobbled by where the studios wanted it to end when it was over. Because think about it this way. Here's the thing. I'm gonna have to score this slightly retrospectively because I kind of feel like there were things that Mangold and Jackman wanted to do that they weren't allowed to stick with because there was going to be further adventures of Wolverine. And one of the reasons why Logan was just so damn good was because, you know what? This is the end of the character, so we're going for broke. And we're going to finally do the things that we've wanted to do with this character. And I feel like that intent alone is why I'm giving this movie an 8. Because I really did enjoy the movie a hell of a lot more than I thought I was going to. And it's got its problems, but it still entertained the hell out of me. And it still made me think, and it made me really love the character of Wolverine again after the last couple, especially after last week. Like last week, if you're a Wolverine fan, that was really hard. But it made me fall in love again. And honestly, the minute it was over, even when the credits started playing, a part of me was like, I want to shut off now. I want to shut it off before the after credit sequence happened because I remember that and it's a piece of shit, and just go straight to watching Logan. Because I feel like now is the perfect time to watch Logan. And honestly, I may do that tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like I said before, my score on paper and the score that's kind of floating around in my heart are two different things. On paper, I feel like there's so many things that work spectacularly in this film that I want to give it a 9. And I felt like there's the scenes in the bar with about the bear and the guy. I mean, that's a hard 9 right there. Yukio shows up and she's great. Even when he gets in her car and it's full of crap, like just a little touch like that, I thought. I mean, everybody in this movie's got heart and soul. Yeah. So yeah, and I mean the action is terrific. They really did a lot right in this film. Yet I walk away and in my heart I kind of go, boy, that feels like a 7. And like I said, I can't. Even after talking about it, I'm not positive what it is. I think there were things. If the romance was a little more believable, maybe. If there were certain characters we got to know better, hard to say. But I'm going to split the difference and call it an 8, just like you. I think it's probably a low 8. I think once all is said and done, because again, it is a kind of a eerie mixture of things that work spectacularly with some things that just kind of missed the mark. But again, missed them enough that the final product is just a tad, again, just disjointed and jumbled. So I'll call it an 8 and call it a day. And but again, it's a movie I would watch it again. It's not it's a pretty impressive feat for what they had to deal with.
Agreed. How about Who Asked You, sir?
Who asked me? I'm going to give it to that credit sequence. It sounds like so silly, but honestly, as I watched the film, I remember sitting there. You know what's funny? I think now that I know what that cutscene was with the costume, my brain, as I watched the film again, I was sort of gearing up for the costume to be the actual mid-credit sequence, but in reality, it's that thing with Professor X and Magneto. Which doesn't make a lot of sense, by the way. First of all, it doesn't make any sense that, I mean, again, it's the first time we're seeing Charles Xavier after he was destroyed in Part 3, which they never, ever explain. Nope. Just they give a silly throwaway line like, Logan, I always told you, you're not the only one with gifts. But even, yeah, like that's how we explain how you came back from the dead. I'll save you a bleep there. I mean, come on. But even how the scene plays out, where he goes through the thing, all of the change and all the metal things all around him start vibrating, just because Magneto's nearby. And again, they hadn't even, well, I'm not even going to get into the fact that he was supposed to have lost his powers in 3. There's a tiny nod at the end that he gets a glimmer of it back, but now apparently they're back in spades, because if he just walks into the room, things start flying around on their own. Why that would happen, I don't know. And then for some reason, during the conversation, everyone freezes, and then Charles Xavier, I guess, was stuck in the bathroom. Because he comes wheeling around, he comes from halfway down the airport, comes wheeling around like, hey, you didn't, why are you, like, again, were you in the bathroom? Why is Magneto here and you're all the way over there? So just the way the whole thing played out was annoying. And again, the frustration was that it pulled me out of a pretty cool movie. This movie that put a lot of effort into creating a different tone, a different environment, and Wolverine really did thrive in it. And now it pulls me out at the end as if this is supposed to be some sort of a treat. So, no good, guys.
I 100% accept that. And I'm going to go one further with my Who Asked You. I'm going to say they should have put the damn scene in anyway. They should have had her give him the suit. Them taking that out at the end, screw you guys. They should, that scene, that's my Who Asked You. They should have left it in. Just even the smallest bit of fan service would have been wonders for me. Thank you.
You know, the frustration is that somewhere there's a costume designer who came up with the perfect costume for Logan, which never even saw the light of day. I mean, luckily we have it now. I mean, we all have seen it, and I think the whole world looks at it and goes, wow, that would have been cool if they left that in there. But they didn't. So, yeah. But...
Well, how about for your consideration, sir?
Did you officially give your?
Yeah, mine was that they should have kept the scene in with the costume.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For your consideration, honestly, again, a lot of really good parts to the film, but I'm going to stick with the bear scene. Frankly, the bear and the guys in the bar. I remember that scene was really when they pulled me in and made me say, oh, they're really doing Wolverine. They're really going to get it right. And I remember it was the first moment where I really felt like I was full blown. I mean, again, we get it in spades in Logan, but this was the first time I really felt like I was seeing the character of Wolverine on screen. They nailed it. So yeah, that scene, I'm going to give it to them for that one.
Well, that was definitely one of my also rans. I also wanted to give a big shout out to the fight choreography throughout the movie. I feel like it was some of the best in the entire X-Men series. Especially the funeral fight, the way that they portrayed him slowly realizing what the hell is going on with my powers.
Yep.
The big sword fight with Yukio and Shinjin at the end in the compound. But what I really want to do, I want to give a nice shout out to Ryla Fukushima. Because Yukio was actually my favorite character in the comic book. And I feel that she got it perfectly. And I loved all the interaction she had with Logan throughout the movie. I loved the way she played it. I liked how she, fought. She was a whirling dervish in her fight scenes.
Yeah.
And a lot of that seemed like it was her. So I'm giving it to her for this one. I thought she was perfect as Yukio, and the fact that we never got a follow-up to Yukio, to me, is a tragedy.
I'll grant you that one. I agree with that wholeheartedly, and it is sort of a shame. What's funny is that, you know, by the way, there were once or twice in this film where I kind of had flashbacks of You Only Live Twice, the James Bond movie that happens in Japan. And
oh, yeah. I remember
oddly
that
enough, one of the things that reminded me of it was when you meet Yukio, she's got all this great personality. Then you meet Mariko, and she does not have much personality. And it's the contrast is sort of odd because, again, like, Mariko is the one he falls for. Yet you're not seeing the spark between the two. You Only Live Twice is sort of notorious for having two Bond girls, where he meets one in the beginning, and she's the one that you spend the most time with. She does a lot of important stuff. There's a lot of good rescues, and then she's killed off 2/3 in, and this other one just sort of slips in as the new Bond girl, and she's very lackluster. You know, she doesn't really do much, and they don't even say her name in the film. So that, you know, I kind of thought of that as I was watching this, because I thought, again, I'm watching, you know, Mariko is supposed to be the one that he falls for, and she's just very lukewarm, not really much happening with her at all.
Yeah. Nothing against the actress. I think that, you know,
it's just the way it's written.
Yeah, there were certain scenes that she did very, very well where I actually bought her as Mariko. But yeah, no, it's a shame because in the comics she's a really good character, and I kind of miss that character.
Oh my goodness! Oh my God! My friend, we are done with the X-Men. We will never ever talk about the X-Men again, or at least not for a while.
Not for a while, because Kevin Feige did say that while he didn't bring it up, yes, you can expect news about mutants and the Fantastic Four and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and soon is what he said. So I'm assuming it's going to be at the D23. But yes, we did. We got through them all. It's done. It's over. Hail and farewell and all that crap.
Wowee. And this took us a long time because we had a lot of things in between, but
oh yeah, we definitely worked it, at least. That's the good part.
We certainly did.
But next week, dude, I got to be honest with you. I always go into a Tarantino movie with kind of a 50-50 attitude, and this one is definitely giving me that vibes as well, because next week we are going to cover the brand new Tarantino movie, his 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. That should be pretty wild, and it's what's nice about this is that it's going to give us a chance to talk about Tarantino in general,
which we don't do much.
Which we haven't really done at all. We have not done a Tarantino film yet, and, you know, this is a nice change of pace. So it'll give us a chance to sort of branch out a little bit, and it's funny because I feel like when you and I talk movies not in the show, we tend to talk, or, you know, we did over the years, talked a lot about Tarantino. So now we get to do it here a little bit. Then, by the way, we follow up with one of your favorite franchises and then one of my favorite franchises.
I know. We got a lot. It's going to be great next couple of weeks.
Yep.
We've got the Nolan trilogy, Batman, coming, and then we're doing the Rambo series.
Yep. One of my all-time favorites from way back when. And seriously, I remember you've been actually chomping at the bit to do this Batman series, because I remember, like, our first year, you were like, all right, we got to do Batman. I said, okay, and I put Batman on the schedule, and you looked at it like as we were well into it, and you went, you put the Keatons in there, and I was like, well, you're like, no, I don't want to do those. I want to do the good ones. And I was like, well, we got to do this first. So this is sort of a long time in the making, so I'm glad it's here.
Let's quantify that. The really great one, the, you know, medium one with hindsight, and the what the hell happened here one is how I'm going to describe the Batman movies.
I'm very excited to talk about those with you.
Me too, man. Me too. So until next week, sir. Wow, what a show, dude.
What a show. What a show. So I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye. And it looks like it's climbing clear up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful view